The first thing Maya Thompson noticed was the sound. A harsh, broken gasp, like air being dragged through water. It sliced through the silence of the 47th floor, echoing off glass walls and marble floors that had never known panic. The kind of sound that didn't belong in a building where billion-dollar deals were signed and lives were controlled with a signature. Maya froze mid-step. Her mop hovered inches above the polished floor, her latex-gloved fingers tightening around the handle as her heart slammed once, twice, hard enough to make her dizzy. She wasn't supposed to be here yet. The executive level was usually empty at this hour, too late for meetings, too early for ambition, just quiet corridors lit by soft recessed lights and the distant hum of the city far below. Another sound followed. A weak thud. Then silence. Maya swallowed. Every instinct she'd developed over 12 years of night shifts screamed at her to do what she always did: keep her head down, finish her job, don't get involved. Harrington Industries didn't pay janitors to investigate noises behind frosted glass doors. But something was wrong. She took a hesitant step toward the private executive office at the end of the hall, the one reserved for Vivian Harrington herself. The door was slightly ajar. A strip of warm light spilled across the floor. And then she saw her. Vivian Harrington, billionaire, tech icon, untouchable force, was crumpled on the floor beside her desk. Not graceful, not powerful. Collapsed. Maya's breath caught painfully in her chest. Vivian's face was pale, lips tinged an alarming blue, her chest rising in short, shallow spasms like she was fighting something invisible that was tightening around her throat. One hand clawed weakly at her collar, fingernails scraping against silk. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. Her mop clattered to the floor as she rushed forward, knees hitting the carpet hard enough to sting. She didn't feel it. All she saw was the way Vivian's eyes fluttered, unfocused, terrified, locking onto Maya for half a second before rolling back. Vivian Harrington was suffocating. Ma'am," Maya said, her voice shaking as she pressed two fingers against Vivian's neck the way she'd seen in training videos years ago. A pulse. Faint, erratic. Too fast. Panic surged through Maya like electricity. She fumbled for her radio clipped to her waistband, her hands suddenly clumsy, slick with sweat. "Security," she gasped. "Executive floor, medical emergency, please." Static crackled back. No response. The building was too big, too quiet, too slow. Vivian's chest stuttered, then stopped. "No, no, no," Maya breathed. Her brother Eli's face flashed in her mind, pale under hospital lights, tubes taped to his arms, doctors speaking in careful voices about time and cost and waiting lists. She remembered sitting in a plastic chair, praying someone, anyone, would act fast enough to save him. Seconds mattered. Maya leaned over Vivian, her ear hovering near her mouth. Nothing. No breath. Her vision tunneled. "I don't know how to do this," Maya whispered, tears burning behind her eyes. "I don't know how." But there was no one else. She tilted Vivian's head back, heart hammering so loudly she could barely think. She checked her mouth quickly, clear. No obstruction. CPR training, old videos, a poster in the break room she barely glanced at. Airway, breathing, circulation. Maya took a shaky breath. Then she made a decision that would split her life cleanly into before and after. She sealed her lips over Vivian Harrington. The taste was faintly metallic, cold. Maya exhaled, forcing air into Vivian's lungs. Once. Twice. "Breathe," Maya begged between breaths. "Please just breathe." Her hands trembled as she began chest compressions, counting under her breath, her shoulders burning, sweat dripping down her spine. Her arms ached. Her lungs screamed. Vivian didn't move. "Come on," Maya sobbed. "You don't get to die like this, not alone." She leaned down again. Another breath. Another. Vivian's body jerked violently. A strangled cough tore from her throat as she sucked in air like a drowning swimmer breaking the surface. Her eyes snapped open, wild and confused, fingers clutching at Maya's sleeve. Relief crashed over Maya, so hard her vision blurred. "Oh, thank God," she whispered, collapsing back on her heels as paramedics' voices finally echoed down the hall. Security burst in moments later, followed by medics who took over with practiced efficiency. Oxygen masks, monitors, commands fired like bullets. Maya backed away, suddenly aware of her uniform, her scuffed shoes, her shaking hands. She stood frozen against the wall as Vivian was lifted onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her past, Vivian turned her head slightly. Their eyes met. And in that moment, raw, fragile, unforgettable, Maya saw something crack through the billionaire's carefully built armor. Recognition. Not as a janitor. Not as background. But as the woman who had breathed life back into her body. By morning, the building buzzed with whispers. By afternoon, the story had spread. But Maya had no idea that the kiss she gave to save a stranger's life had just set something unstoppable in motion. Something dangerous. Something transformative. Something that would change everything. For both of them. If you were the one witnessing this first moment, what would you have done? Before the full story continues, please consider subscribing. I worked incredibly hard to craft this story just for you. By the time the sun rose over the glass towers of downtown, the executive floor of Harrington Industries had already been scrubbed of chaos. The carpet where Vivian Harrington had collapsed was cleaned. The oxygen tank was gone, the stretcher tracks erased. To the outside world, nothing unusual had happened. But for Maya Thompson, the night replayed over and over like a scar that refused to fade. She sat alone in the locker room, uniform folded on her lap, fingers still trembling. The harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, indifferent to the storm inside her chest. Her mouth still remembered the cold, desperate press of Vivian's lips. Her arms still ached from compressions she wasn't sure she had done right. Yet somehow she had. She saved a life. The thought didn't make her feel proud. It made her feel terrified. Because people like Maya weren't supposed to touch people like Vivian Harrington, not like that. Not in a way that mattered. For 12 years, Maya had mastered the art of being unseen. She learned it young. After their mother died and their father disappeared into the soft promises of a city that never gave anything back, Maya became the backbone of a household that barely existed. She dropped out of community college halfway through her first year, trading textbooks for late-night shifts and blistered hands. She learned which hallways were watched and which ones weren't, which executives tipped and which pretended she didn't exist, which nights were safest to cry in the supply closet. Harrington Industries wasn't just a job, it was survival. Every swipe of her keycard meant rent paid. Every overtime shift meant medication for Eli. Every ignored insult meant another month above water. So when she'd landed this position years ago, she promised herself one thing. Don't be noticed. Because being noticed led to questions, questions led to scrutiny, and scrutiny led to losing everything. That promise had kept her safe. Until the night she broke it. Upstairs, in a private hospital room overlooking the city, Vivian Harrington lay awake. Machines hummed softly around her, steady and reassuring, a rhythm she trusted more than people. Her throat felt raw. Her chest ached deeply, like she'd been punched from the inside. She closed her eyes and saw it again. The ceiling lights blurring, her lungs refusing to obey. The sudden, overwhelming certainty that all her money, all her power, all her control meant nothing when her body decided to quit. And then a face. Brown eyes wide with fear and determination. A trembling voice whispering, "Don't die, not tonight." Vivian exhaled slowly. She had almost died alone in her office. The irony tasted bitter. Her entire life had been built on self-sufficiency. She didn't trust easily, didn't lean, didn't depend. Harrington Industries had grown under her iron discipline after her father's death, a legacy she protected ruthlessly. People respected her. They feared her. But they didn't know her. The janitor did. The woman whose name Vivian still didn't know. Back at the apartment Maya shared with Eli, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and burnt toast. Eli sat at the tiny kitchen table, hoodie pulled tight around his thin frame, eyes sharp with worry. "You're late," he said quietly. Maya forced a smile. "Extra work." Eli studied her face, the pale skin, the dark circles, the way her hands shook as she poured water. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly, "Just tired." But Eli knew better. He always did. After dinner, Maya sat on the edge of his bed while he took his meds, the familiar routine grounding her. Pill, sip, breathe. "You ever think about leaving?" Eli asked suddenly. Maya stiffened. "Leaving where?" "Leaving that place," he said. "That building eats you alive." She looked away. "It feeds us." Eli sighed. "You saved someone, didn't you?" Her heart skipped. "What?" He shrugged weakly. "You look like you do after the hospital, like you were scared but didn't run." Maya swallowed hard. She didn't answer. The next night, Maya returned to work. Her footsteps echoed louder than usual as she stepped onto the executive floor. Every shadow made her flinch. Every closed door felt like a secret waiting to explode. She expected security to stop her. They didn't. She expected whispers. There were plenty. But no one said her name. Until she reached Vivian Harrington's office. The door was open. Vivian stood inside, dressed simply, no sharp suit, no commanding heels. Just a soft blouse and slacks. Her posture was rigid, like she was bracing for impact. "Maya Thompson," Vivian said. Maya froze. "Yes, ma'am." Vivian turned fully, studying her with an intensity that made Maya's skin prickle. "You saved my life." Maya's throat tightened. "I just did what anyone would." Vivian shook her head slowly. "No, most people freeze." Silence stretched between them, fragile and heavy. "I owe you more than a thank you," Vivian continued. "But I don't know how to repay something like that." Maya shifted uncomfortably. "You don't owe me anything. I was just doing my job." Vivian frowned. "Your job isn't to die for strangers." Maya met her gaze for the first time, really met it, and saw exhaustion beneath the power, fear beneath the polish. "Neither is yours," Maya said softly. Something flickered across Vivian's face. "Respect." That night, Vivian insisted Maya sit. Just for a moment. They talked cautiously at first, about nothing important, about late nights and broken sleep schedules, about how lonely a building could feel after midnight. It wasn't friendship, but it was human. And that scared both of them. Because kindness, once given, has a way of demanding more. And neither of them knew what it would cost. Kindness never arrives quietly. It comes with consequences, with questions, with eyes that start paying attention where they never did before. Maya felt it immediately. The first sign was the way people looked at her. Not openly, not obviously, just a second too long, a pause where there hadn't been one before, a subtle recalibration like the building itself was trying to figure out where she now belonged. She didn't. She could feel that. Security nodded at her now. Executives said her name out loud. Someone from HR smiled in a way that felt rehearsed. Attention was a luxury Maya couldn't afford. At home, Eli noticed too. "You're quieter," he said one night, stirring canned soup on the stove. like you're waiting for something bad. Maya leaned against the counter, exhaustion weighing on her bones. Because good things don't happen to people like us without a price. Eli looked at her carefully. Maybe this one's different. She almost laughed. Different was dangerous. Upstairs, Vivian Harrington was discovering the same truth from the opposite end of the world. Her near-death experience had cracked something open, not weakness, but awareness. She noticed how empty her penthouse felt, how silent her phone was after business hours, how many people spoke to her in carefully polished tones, never once asking how she was breathing now. Except one. Maya. Vivian started staying late again, not for work, but for proximity. She told herself it was coincidence. It was. Their conversations remained small, stolen between cleaning schedules and unfinished emails, but each one chipped away at the distance. Maya talked about Eli. Vivian listened, not like an executive gathering information, like a woman learning something she had never needed to understand before. One evening, Vivian offered Maya a cup of tea. Maya hesitated. "I'm not supposed to." "I'm asking," Vivian said. Maya accepted. That was the moment things crossed a line neither of them could uncross. Because someone was watching. Richard Cole had worked beside Vivian for 6 years as Chief Operations Officer. He knew her rhythms, her tells, and lately something was off. She was distracted, softer, human. And that made him nervous. Richard believed power was something you guarded, not shared. Kindness was leverage. Vulnerability was a liability. So when he noticed the janitor in Vivian's office again, sitting, talking, his jaw tightened. He didn't confront Vivian. Not yet. He started asking questions instead. Who was Maya Thompson? Why was she being allowed upstairs? Why had security logs been altered the night of Vivian's collapse? By the end of the week, he had answers. And they scared him. Because Maya wasn't just a witness. She was a variable. Back in Maya's world, the pressure came quietly. Her supervisor pulled her aside. "You've been requested for executive floor duties exclusively." Maya's stomach dropped. "I didn't ask for that." "Doesn't matter," the woman said flatly. "Don't mess this up." At home, Eli's condition worsened. The hospital called twice in one day. Maya stood in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, heart pounding, as she listened to numbers she didn't understand and costs she definitely did. She needed money. And Vivian had it. The thought made her nauseous. That night, Maya nearly walked away. She stood in the lobby, coat on, keycard heavy in her pocket. Then she remembered Vivian's face when she woke up gasping. So she stayed. And the threat revealed itself. Richard cornered Maya near the service elevator. "You're enjoying the attention," he said calmly. Maya's pulse spiked. "Excuse me." "You should be careful," he continued. "People might misunderstand your intentions." "I saved her life," Maya said, voice tight. Richard smiled thinly. "And now you're close enough to hurt her." The elevator dinged. Maya stepped inside, shaking. She realized then, kindness had put a target on her back. And walking away now wouldn't save her. It would only prove she was guilty of something she never intended. The choice was no longer simple. The nights grew quieter. Not in the building. Harrington Industries never truly slept, but between them. After everything that had been said and almost said, Maya and Vivian began to exist in a fragile in-between space. Not employer and employee, not friends, not equals. Just two women sharing borrowed time after midnight. It started with small things. Vivian asking Maya if her brother's medication had come in. Maya noticing Vivian's hands shaking when her breathing grew shallow. A shared silence that no longer felt awkward. One night, Vivian surprised herself by speaking first. I was 11 when my father stopped hugging me, she said quietly. Maya looked up from where she was wiping the edge of the desk. Why? He said affection made people weak, Vivian replied. That if I wanted to inherit his company one day, I needed to learn how to stand alone. Maya leaned the cloth down slowly. Did you believe him? Vivian stared at the city lights. I built an empire trying to prove him right. Maya felt something shift inside her chest, not pity, but understanding. My mom hugged us even when we didn't have food, Maya said. She said love was free, and that was why it mattered most. Vivian swallowed hard. They talked more after that. About fear, about the loneliness of responsibility, about how power isolated and poverty suffocated, two cages built from opposite ends of the world. Maya spoke about Eli's hospital rooms, the beeping machines, the way she counted breaths in her sleep. Vivian listened without interrupting, her jaw tight, her eyes damp. You shouldn't have to carry that alone, Vivian said. I don't have a choice, Maya replied gently. Vivian hated that answer, because she knew what it meant to have choices and to ignore them. That night when Maya turned to leave, Vivian stopped her. Stay, she said, just sit a little longer. Maya hesitated, then sat. For the first time in years, Vivian Harrington felt something close to peace. And that scared her more than any boardroom fight ever had. Peace never lasts. Richard Cole watched everything unravel with quiet fury. Vivian was distracted, decisions delayed, meetings postponed. And the janitor was still there. Richard began pushing harder. Anonymous tips to the board, security audits, whispers about inappropriate relationships and liability risks. One night, Maya arrived to find her access temporarily revoked. Her heart pounded as she stood at the turnstile, badge blinking red. Security apologized awkwardly. System update. She knew better. When Vivian heard, she exploded. No one touches her access without my approval, she snapped in a closed meeting. Is that clear? Richard met her gaze. You're letting emotion cloud judgment. I'm letting humanity guide it, Vivian shot back. That's dangerous. So is forgetting we're human, Vivian replied coldly. The board was uneasy. And unease bred decisions. At home, Eli collapsed. Maya arrived at the hospital to find doctors rushing him into surgery. Consent forms, serious faces, the word complications hanging in the air like a sentence. She broke down in the hallway. Vivian arrived an hour later. She didn't bring security. She didn't bring assistance. She brought herself. Maya cried into her shoulder like a child, and Vivian held her, not as a billionaire, not as a savior, but as someone who finally understood what it meant to be powerless. I can help, Vivian whispered. Let me. Maya pulled back, shaking. I don't want you to think. I think you're brave, Vivian said, and I think kindness isn't a debt. That night sealed their bond. And their fate. Because Richard now had proof. Photos, hospital records, witnesses. He went to the board with a final ultimatum. And the storm moved in. The morning after Eli's surgery, Maya woke up in a stiff hospital chair with her neck bent at an unnatural angle, and her heart lodged firmly in her throat. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she heard the machines. Steady, rhythmic. She bolted upright and looked at her brother. Eli was pale but breathing, alive. A thin bandage curved along his side like a fragile promise. Relief hit her so hard she had to press her fist to her mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. You stayed, Eli murmured weakly. Always, Maya whispered, brushing his hair back. A soft knock came at the door. Vivian stepped inside. She looked different here, stripped of her armor, her power reduced to quiet concern. She carried a small velvet box in her hand. I didn't want to intrude, Vivian said softly, but I thought maybe now. Maya stood slowly, nerves sparking. You didn't have to come. I know, Vivian replied. That's why I did. They stepped into the hallway. Vivian opened the box. Inside was a simple silver key on a thin chain. This is the master access key to my old brownstone, Vivian said. The first place I ever lived on my own. I keep it locked now, but it's safe, private, untouchable. Maya stared. Vivian, I can't. This isn't charity, Vivian interrupted. It's trust. She closed Maya's fingers gently around the key. For the first time in my life, someone saved me without wanting anything back. I want you to have something that means the same. Maya's eyes burned. What if it costs you? Vivian smiled sadly. Then it's finally worth something. The board meeting was called that afternoon. Vivian knew what it meant. Richard didn't bother hiding his triumph as he laid everything out. Accusations, breaches of conduct, threats of scandal. This relationship exposes the company to risk, Richard concluded, and liability. Vivian stood slowly. For years we've hidden behind numbers and forgotten people, she said calmly. Maya Thompson saved my life. If that's a liability, then so am I. The room erupted. Outside, Maya waited, heart pounding, key clenched in her palm. Then security arrived. Not for her. For Richard. The evidence Vivian had quietly gathered, fraud, embezzlement, manipulation, crashed down like thunder. Richard was escorted out, shouting. The building exhaled. Vivian walked out of the boardroom and straight into Maya's arms. Months later, the brownstone was filled with light. Eli laughed in the kitchen, healthier than he'd ever been. Maya sat on the steps, watching him like a miracle she still didn't quite believe in. Vivian joined her, handing her a cup of tea. Do you regret it? Maya asked softly. Vivian shook her head. I regret every year I thought kindness was weakness. Maya smiled. The silver key rested between them, no longer just a symbol of safety, but of a life rebuilt. Vivian squeezed Maya's hand. And for the first time, both of them felt whole. What powerful lesson did you take away from this story today?